When it's dark and dreary in these winter months, what do you most like to do? I'm hoping that some of you might say you love to sit by a cosy fire and listen to a good story. That's a great way to make your heart warm and bring good cheer. Hello everyone, I'm Kathleen Pelly. Welcome to this special omnibus edition of Journey with Story, where you can listen to all of this month's episodes in one single sitting. Oh, mums and dads, and all of you grown-ups, you might be interested in a little handout that I have available on my website that gives you lots of tips on raising kids who love to read. Of course, I know you're interested in that because you're already sharing this storytelling podcast with your little ones. So go to www.journeywithstory.com and click on the Resources tab at the top. And you can also find the link in our episode notes. Now, let's take an omnibus journey with story. Now, let's take a journey with The Gift of Father Frost. One winter evening, a stranger knocked at the door of a farmhouse, hoping there was somewhere he could sleep for the night. "Who are you?" asked the poor man who lived there. "I am the youngest son of Father Frost," the stranger replied. "I'm on my way from the far north to visit other lands." The man invited the stranger inside, and as it suddenly turned chilly, he let his guest sleep on the bed above the stove. In the morning, the room was bitterly cold and sparkling white with frost. The man was amazed to find that, despite the freeze, his guest was sleeping without any bedclothes. For a moment he was afraid the traveller had died of the cold. But the stranger woke up, complained that the room had been too warm, and went on his way. A few weeks later, another stranger appeared at the man's door. He told the man that he was the second son of Father Frost and asked for a bed, just like his brother. As before, the poor man offered him the bed above the stove. In the morning, the room was so cold that the logs of the wooden walls were cracked and the water barrel had frozen. However, as before, the stranger lay asleep without any bedclothes. When he woke up, he complained that the room had been so hot he couldn't get to sleep until dawn. Then he went on his way. A few weeks later, a third stranger appeared at the door. He explained that he was the eldest son of Father Frost and asked the man if he had a bed for the night. "No," the man said firmly. "Your two brothers stayed here and gave me no thanks. Be gone on your way." But the stranger pleaded for somewhere to rest his head. "I apologize for my brother's behaviour," he said. "I promise I shall be grateful." The eldest son looked so weary that the poor man felt sorry for him. "You may sleep in the barn," he said. Next morning, the trees in the yard were hung with icicles, As the man walked to the barn, the air was so cold that it hurt his teeth. The barn door was open, and just like his brothers, the stranger was asleep with no bedclothes. He woke up with a smile. "What a pleasant place to sleep," he said. The weather was perfectly cool. He opened his travelling bag and pulled out 2 small, clean sacks. "Take these gifts from my father as thanks for your kindness. The black one is a hot sack, and the white one is a cold sack. If you need heat or cold, just open the mouth of a sack a little. But be warned, too much will blast you like a burning furnace or freeze you like midwinter." Then he went on his way. The gifts of Father Frost now gave the poor man an easy life. He never needed to chop firewood because the heat sack warmed his house. It also melted the snow in his fields, so his crops could begin growing early in the year. Before long, his neighbours began to wonder why his fields were green when their ground was still frozen. Soon, a rumour began to spread that the man had a magical heat sack. The rumour reached the farmer who owned the land where the poor man lived. He summoned the man to his house. "Is it true that you have a magical heat sack?" he asked. "Yes, master," said the man. "Then fetch it," said the farmer. "I demand to have it." The man went home, but he didn't want to give up his precious gift from Father Frost, and so he hid inside his farmhouse. When he didn't return, the farmer went to look for him and banged on his door. "If you won't obey my order, you must leave this house at once," he shouted. "Everything you have belongs to me." The man opened the door a crack. In his hands was the cold sack. He opened it a little, and a sudden blast of bitterly cold air hit the farmer's face, freezing his nose and biting his ears. With a roar of pain, the farmer ran away and never bothered the poor man again. Still, rumours grew about the poor man's heat sack, and a few months later, the richest farmer in the village offered to buy it for a bag of gold. But the poor man refused. "Gold will soon be spent," he said. "I'd rather keep what I have." The rich farmer was not used to being unable to buy what he wanted. That night, while the poor man slept, he returned and stole the heat sack. When the rich farmer got home, he opened the sack wide. A fierce heat blazed out, instantly making his house as hot as an oven. Fearing he would melt on the spot, the farmer quickly fled and hurried to the house of the poor man. Once there, he confessed what he had done and asked for help. The poor man took the cold sack to the rich farmer's house. He only had to open it for a moment to cool the house. Then he tied up the heat sack and took back what was his. The rich farmer thanked him and never troubled him again. Eventually, the king himself heard about the magical sacks. He too offered to buy them for gold, but the poor man would not part with his treasures. "Then come and live in my palace," said the king. "In return for opening the heat sack once a day to warm the palace and make the flowers in my garden blossom, You shall have all you wish for." The man agreed, and so he was no longer poor and became a friend to the king. One day a messenger came to the palace with news that an army was invading. The king sent his own army to defend the country, but despite fighting bravely, it was sadly defeated. "Don't be afraid," said the man with the special sacks. "Hide your people in the palace cellars and let the enemy soldiers come. I shall meet them." So the king ordered all his people to hide in the palace cellars. When the soldiers arrived, they were surprised to find the city empty. "What an easy victory!" they cried, and they marched to the palace to celebrate. While they were busy eating and drinking, the man crept close with a cold sack. He put it under a table, opened it wide, and hurried away. A bitter, icy blast whistled through the palace, turning it white with frost. The soldiers were terrified. They immediately fled from the winter freeze, shivering and shuddering, and vowed never to enter that kingdom again. Then the man opened his heat sack so that warmth returned, and he could close the cold sack once more. After that, no enemy ever dared to invade the kingdom again. The man lived happily in the palace with his friend the king, and when he died, the magical sacks disappeared and were never seen again. Now, let's take a journey with Alexander Jones. Let me tell you a story. It was a chilly winter's day. A husband and wife were sitting together by the fire on a bench, which had a tall back and sides to keep out the draught. The man, whose name was John, took his pipe out of his mouth and he frowned. "Jean, sit a wee bit east," he said. "You're taking up more than your fair share of the bench." Jean was trying to untangle her knitting wool and paid no attention. "Jean," he said again, "sit a wee bit east. It's selfish to take up so much room." And he gave her a shove towards the other end of the bench. "What did you do that for, John?" said Jean crossly. "And what do you mean by sitting east? There's no such thing as east." "How can you say there's no such thing as east?" he said in astonishment. "Every moment of the day the sun is rising in the east, somewhere around the world. Surely you don't disagree with that? Therefore, all around the world is east. In fact, as everywhere is east, there's nowhere for west to be, so stop making a goose of yourself by talking nonsense." Jean put down her knitting. "You're not looking at it the right way," she told John. "Every moment of the day the sun is setting in the west somewhere around the world. Therefore it follows that everywhere is west, and that does not leave any room for east to be. So don't be ridiculous by mentioning it again." John puffed on his pipe with exasperation. He was just about to argue back when Jean jumped up, lifted her long skirt, and ran around the room in one direction, crying, "West, west, west," to show how it was done. Up jumped John after her, and he began to run around the room in the opposite direction, crying, "East, east, east." This only ended in them getting so giddy that they banged their heads together, which made them very cross and didn't solve the problem. All the while, Alexander Jones sat in the corner, watching, and said nothing. John and Jean agreed that the question of East and West was all too important to leave undecided. So they went to see the local grocer who had a big house in the town centre. And Alexander Jones went too. The grocer was very interested to hear about the problem. So was the grocer's wife, and his mother, and his wife's aunt, who was visiting for the day, and the delivery boy, and several customers. But they disagreed on the answer. Some ran round the table in one direction, shouting, "West, west, west." Some ran round the table in the other direction, shouting, "East, east, east." Eventually, they all got so giddy that they banged their heads, which made everyone cross and didn't solve the problem. Meanwhile, Alexander Jones sat quietly in the corner and said nothing. Everybody did agree that the question of East and West was too important to leave undecided, so they went down the road to the inn to see the innkeeper. And Alexander Jones went too. The innkeeper was interested to hear about the problem. So was the innkeeper's husband, and his old father, and the innkeeper's brother, who brewed the beer, and the stable boy, and several customers. But they disagreed on the answer. Some of them ran round a table in one direction, shouting, "West, west, west." Some ran around a table in the other direction, shouting, "East, east, east." Eventually everyone got so giddy that they banged their heads, which made them all cross and didn't solve the problem. Meanwhile, Alexander Jones sat quietly in the corner and said nothing. Everyone at the inn agreed that the matter was too important to leave undecided, so they went to visit the magistrate, who had the largest house in the town. And Alexander Jones went too. The magistrate was interested to hear about the problem. So was the magistrate's wife, their 4 children, the cook, and several other people who had come to ask his advice about important matters. But they disagreed on the answer. Some ran round the table in one direction, shouting, "West, west, west." Some ran round the table in the other direction, shouting, "East, east, east." Eventually, everyone got so giddy that they banged their heads, which made them all cross and didn't solve the problem. Meanwhile, Alexander Jones sat quietly in the corner and said nothing. The magistrate decided the matter of East and West was too important to leave undecided, So he called all the people of the town to a meeting, and Alexander Jones went too. The meeting was held in the town hall. The townspeople were very interested to hear about the problem, but they disagreed on the answer. "If only we had a table to run around, we could show how east works," said some of them. "If we had a table to run around, we could show how west works," said the others. But there was no table to be found in the town hall. The grocer suggested that the magistrate sat in the middle of the room so they could run around him. "Oh, no," said the magistrate wearily. "That would make me dizzy. Why not run around Alexander Jones instead? It won't bother him." "That won't do," said Jean. "Alexander Jones is only small. He'll get trodden on." So the magistrate agreed to sit in the middle of the room on the condition that he had his eyes covered with a scarf. When he was ready, half the people of the town ran around him in one direction, shouting, "West, west, west!" And the rest ran around him in the other direction, shouting, "East, east, east!" Eventually, everyone got so giddy that they banged their heads, and one woman fell into the magistrate's lap. "Enough!" cried the magistrate, and he tore off the scarf. "We must find another way to solve this problem. Somebody fetch Peter, the road mender. He ought to know about the movements of the sun, for he's always up early and out working late." "Peter is a shy man. He won't come without a sister," said Jean. "Then fetch them both," said the magistrate. Now, unfortunately, the town hall was already so full that there wasn't enough room for 2 more people to fit in. So they asked me to leave, being only a visitor from the country. And Alexander Jones was sent away too, although he said nothing. For that reason, I never found out whether the world is all east or all west, and I was very disappointed, as I'm sure you are too, after listening to this story so patiently. But why did Alexander Jones just sit in the corner and say nothing, you ask? Well, he really could not do anything else, for he was only a small black cat. Now, let's take a journey with The Christmas Rose, a tale from Sweden. Long ago, a robber and his family lived in a cave in a forest. The robber stole money from travellers who came riding along, but when times were hard, his wife and children went into the town to beg. One day the robber mother was in town when she noticed a door open in the wall of the monastery. Peering through, she saw a beautiful garden where one of the monks was weeding a flower bed. She walked in and her children followed. The monk jumped to his feet. "You can't come in here," he cried. "Women aren't allowed in the monastery." But the robber mother didn't care about rules. She studied the herbs and flowers closely while her children chased up and down the paths. The monk was afraid to argue with the robber mother, as she had a fierce reputation. So he hurried inside to inform Abbot Hans, who was in charge of the monastery. The old abbot had created the garden himself and loved it dearly. With the monk at his heels, he went out to speak with the robber mother. To his delight, she seemed fascinated by every plant. "Does my garden please you?" he asked her gently. "It is a pretty garden," she said, "but it is not as beautiful as the garden in the forest." Abbot Hans and the monk were taken by surprise. "There is no garden finer than this," insisted the monk. "Abbot Hans has spent many years making it." "I tell you there is," said the robber mother. Every Christmas Eve, the forest is transformed into a garden more beautiful than any other. But only those of us who live there see it. The monk scoffed in disbelief, but Abbot Hans listened thoughtfully. He remembered an ancient legend about a magical garden in the forest. "Let me visit you on Christmas Eve so I may see it," he asked. "In return, I will do whatever I can to help your family." The robber mother was worried that visitors might give away her family's hideout, but she saw how much the abbot loved flowers, and she wanted to prove to the monk that she spoke the truth. So she promised to send one of the children to fetch them on Christmas Eve. Abbot Hans asked the monk not to tell anyone about their plan in case the other monks tried to persuade him not to go. However, when the archbishop came to stay at the monastery a few weeks later, the monk heard Abbot Hans talk about it himself. Abbot Hans told the archbishop about the robber father and asked if he could be given a pardon for his crimes. "Let him be forgiven and welcomed back to the town." The archbishop frowned. "Honest people won't want a robber living among them," he said. Then Abbot Hans told him about the forest garden that flowered on Christmas Eve. "Surely such a miracle would not appear to wicked people," he suggested. The archbishop smiled. "Well, the day you bring me a blossom from that miraculous forest garden, I'll give you a letter of pardon for the robber," he promised. The monk realized that the archbishop believed in the garden as little as he did, but the abbot was happy with his bargain. On Christmas Eve, one of the robber's children came to lead Abbot Hans and the monk into the forest. The journey was long and hard, and at dusk, snow began to fall. At last, they came to a wooden door in a rocky wall. The robber mother welcomed them into the small cave which was the family's home. Abbot Hans was saddened to see how little comfort they had. By the fire sat the robber father. He greeted the visitors with suspicion. "I suppose you've come to persuade my wife and children to leave me and go back to town," he muttered. No, Abbot Hans replied. "My hope is to get you a letter of pardon from the archbishop himself." The robber father laughed. "That's not very likely," he said. "But if you can get me a pardon, good abbot, then I promise I will never steal again." At that moment, Christmas bells rang out in the town. The robber family rushed out into the forest, and their guests followed. A faint light glowed in the darkness. As it brightened, the snow began to melt. Ferns and moss grew at their feet, and spring buds pushed through the earth. Abbot Hans watched in wonder. The light faded a moment and then brightened again. Trees swiftly burst into leaf, and the forest meadow came alive with wildflowers, butterflies, and bird song. Once more the light dimmed. Then a new brightness brought a warm wind, which scattered seeds among the grasses. The seeds instantly grew into bushes of blueberries and lingonberries, and young squirrels appeared scampering among them. Now change happened even faster. Cones grew on the pine trees, juniper berries ripened, and there were wild strawberries for the children to eat. Abbot Hans gazed around at the carpet of flowers buzzing with bees. He couldn't choose which to pick for the Archbishop, for each new flower was more beautiful than the last. Then all of the bees, birds, and animals fell silent. From the starry heavens came the sound of harps and angelic voices singing carols to celebrate Christmas night. The old abbot's heart was filled with an overwhelming joy. But the monk did not trust what he saw or heard. Why should this wonder be revealed to robbers? He thought suspiciously. We must all be under a spell. At that moment, a little grey dove flew down onto his shoulder. "Get away from me, wicked spirit!" the monk cried. At the sound of his sharp words, the sweet music stopped. The warmth vanished, and the darkness returned. Because the monk did not believe in the magical forest garden, frost began to shrivel up every living thing, and snow started to fall. Abbot Hans realized that he hadn't picked a flower for the Archbishop. With the angelic voices still in his head, he fumbled among the moss to find a blossom. Meanwhile, the robber family and the monk hurried back to the cave in the dark. When they saw that the abbot wasn't with them, they lit torches from the fire and went to search for him. The monk found his old friend, lying frozen beneath a blanket of snow, cold as ice, with a peaceful smile upon his face. He wept as he realized that by doubting the forest garden, he had caused the beloved abbot's death. When Abbot Hans was taken back to the monastery, the monk discovered 2 small bulbs clutched tightly in his hand. He planted them in the abbot's garden and tended them with great care. But to his dismay, they did not produce a single flower. However, the following Christmas Eve, out of the cold, bare earth, sprouted green shoots and flowers as white as snow. The monk saw that he had been wrong about the miracle of the forest garden. He picked a flower and took it to the Archbishop, who was astonished to see such a blossom in midwinter. "Abbot Hans kept his word, so I shall keep mine," said the Archbishop, and he gave the monk a letter of pardon for the robber father. When the robber father received the pardon, he also kept his word and never robbed anyone again. The miraculous garden never reappeared. However, each winter, when the earth is bare, the Christmas rose sends up green shoots and snow-white flowers in memory of its home in the forest. Let's take a journey with Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. Dear God, it's me, Jesus. Mama said you'd never have any problem remembering me because I've got the same name as your son. Can you please help me get a part in our school nativity play? Dear God, thank you. Did you see Mama's face when I told her I was innkeeper number 2? She looked all pleased and proud, the way Mary must have done when your angel Gabriel told her she was going to be the mother of Jesus. So now I need you to help me learn my lines. You know I'm not so good at remembering a lot of words. Dear God, thank you for sending Big Cousin Miguel to help me learn my lines. He's really smart, like those wise men. That's why he's the narrator in our nativity play. He's kind, too, like Joseph. Every time I messed up, he told me, "You can do this," and I can. Dear God, where were you today when I messed up? As soon as Miss Rodriguez led us all up onto the stage, I felt scared, like those shepherds in the fields with the angels all around them. Except I was on a stage with other kids all around. They muddled me, and I forgot my lines. You need to help me, God, or Miss Rodriguez will give my part to someone else. Dear God, thank you. I remembered every word today. Did you hear Miss Rodriguez tell me that I was going to be a star? Dear God, look at me. I am going to be the best innkeeper number 2 in the world. Miss Rodriguez marked where I have to stand on the stage with a kiss. Everyone else called it a cross. Dear God, thank you for the costume Tia Lupita sewed for me. It's the same colour as the hay in the manger, and it's scratchy and prickly too. But I don't mind, because it makes me look like a real, live, long-ago innkeeper. That's what Miss Rodriguez wants. She says Christmas is not just a long-ago story. She says every time we love a lot, Jesus is born again in our hearts. I like it when people love a lot, like Tia Lupita. She stayed up real late sewing my costume. Please help me tomorrow at our dress rehearsal. Dear God, today we learned a new word. Fiasco. That's what Miss Rodriguez called our dress rehearsal. Everything went wrong. Please bless Leo. Remember, he was the angel Gabriel, the one with the nosebleed. Oh, and bless Martina. She was the sheep who got sick. Oh, and Mr. Arias, the janitor. He had to clean up. Dear God, it feels so hot. The lights are prickly. There are so many people. I'm scared. Dear God, here they come. Poor Mary. Poor Joseph. They look so real and so sad. I can't tell them to go away. Dear God, at first I thought I had messed up again. Mary and Joseph looked all huffy and hissy like Herod when I said, "Come on home with me. You can have my room." But thank you for getting Miguel to bring me over to the edge of the stage. Did you see how everyone cheered and clapped when he told them that whenever we love a lot like our innkeeper, he meant me, then Jesus is born again in our hearts? I can hardly remember what happened next, but I know there were shepherds and sheep, angels and singing, and then it was over. Miss Rodriguez told me I was the best innkeeper number 2 in the world. Miguel and Mama told me I was a star. Dear God, do you like our nacimiento? Miguel helped me make the innkeeper. I think Mary and Joseph would have wanted him to see the baby. Do you like the star? I made it. Mama says we are all stars when we love a lot, because that lights up the world. Thank you, God, for my stars. Mama, Tia Lupita, Miguel, and you. Feliz Navidad. Dear God, next year, can you help me get another part in the nativity play? Maybe a sheep? Or a shepherd? Or even that horrid Herod? Except I would make him be a bit nicer. Let's take a journey with Silvercap. Silvercap lived in the cloudy sky palace of his father, King Winter. He loved to walk in its crystal gardens, but often he would stop and sigh for the young prince longed to have something useful to do with his days, like his siblings who had important jobs on earth below. One day, King Winter called his family to a meeting in the great hall. The king sat on his throne of ice. "I have called you here because I need your help," he said. "Your brother, West Wind, has just returned from flying around Earth and has brought back worrying news. It seems that Prince Autumn is staying longer than usual, so we must chase him away." North Wind stepped forward. "I will help, Father," he said. "Good," said the king. "Autumn's fairies are still painting the leaves on the trees. You must attack the trees. Blow away their leaves and scatter them far and wide. Then race through the gardens and fields and snap the heads off the autumn flowers." North Wind promised his father he would be fierce. Then he flew off on his way. King Winter turned to his daughter, Princess Snow. "Hurry now to the mountains and fill your many bags with flakes of snow," he told her. "Have them ready tonight so you may fly down to Earth early in the morning and scatter them before the sun appears." "I shall fill my chariot to the brim, Father," promised Princess Snow, and she went off to prepare for the journey. Then King Winter gave instructions to Prince West Wind, Princess Ice, and all his other children. At last he turned to Silvercap. "My son," he said, "you are to take charge of the Frost Fairies. They've been waiting a long time for something to do. Just what that is, I leave up to you to decide." Silvercap thanked his father, pleased to have an important task at last. He went into the garden to think about what to do. All day, Silvercap wondered how the Frost Fairies could be useful on Earth. That evening, North Wind returned, boasting about how he'd pulled the painted leaves off the trees, destroyed the flowers, and driven the birds away. "I'm sure he must have frightened the Earth children," thought Silvercap. And that gave him an idea. Next morning he called the Frost Fairies together. "North Wind has caused great destruction on Earth," he told them. "I'm sure his fierce ways must have frightened the children there. We must find a way to make them happy." Silvercap instructed the Frost Fairies to fill their chariots with feathery leaves and crystal blossoms from the palace garden. Then, at twilight, they flew down to Earth. All night long, the Frost Fairies danced through gardens and fields, draping the bare branches with tiny leaves of frost, and every blade of grass with the white, feathery blossoms they brought from King Winter's garden. "You've made the trees and plants on Earth as beautiful as our own," said Silvercap happily. "Now let's make a surprise for the children when they wake in the morning." The fairies set to work. They covered the windows of the houses with frost pictures of glittering castles, hills covered in silvery ferns, and glistening waterfalls. Just as they finished, the first light of dawn began to glow in the eastern sky. We must be gone, cried Silvercap. Quick, into your chariots and away. When the Earth Children woke up that morning, they were amazed to see the sparkling crystal pictures on their windows. The Frost Fairies were here, they cried with delight. Winter has begun. King Winter was so pleased to hear what Silvercap had done that he made him the Prince of Frostland. Ever since, Silvercap and his Frost Fairies have worked their magic to make winter beautiful for the children of the earth. I hope you enjoyed this special omnibus edition of Journey with Story. And don't forget, if you had a favourite story, do let us know. Just go to www.journeywithstory.com, click on the Contact Us and fill in the form. And if you want to be considered for a shout out on the show, send us your drawings there too. Click on Contact Us, fill in the form and attach your drawing there. You can also see the link in our episode notes. Cheerio then, join me next time for Journey with Story. Music and post-production was by Colette Jonas.